Welcome. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you for
Valpo Life
having
and
me.
Portage Life. We've had an interesting dynamic with yourself. To give a little bit of background, you're the very first person outside of my own wife that knew about our plans for Valpo Life a little over 2 years ago. I called you up and I said, hey, listen, can I meet and present this idea that we're going to have about this whole community concept? And you're incredibly receptive to it. And I think that started a great relationship for me. And I wanted to catch up with you about all the kind of stuff you've been doing. You had a pretty crazy couple of years yourself.
Yep.
Graduating law school and taking on the position at the RDA and all that involves. And I wanted to catch up a little bit about maybe start with current position at the RDA. Tell me a little bit about the past, the present. There's a lot going
hmm
on, obviously, with the airport development right now. A little bit about the future. Help people understand a little bit more about what the RDA is and why it exists and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure, sure. Before we do that, let me congratulate you on your success too. When you first came in and talked about it, and you really hit on a point that was missing here, which was really having that community information center. And Valpo is such a great community, and starting with the community, really highlighting what was already happening and showcasing people, which is really what I see on the site. And the people themselves just speak volumes about what's going on here. And so, it's not
There's a lot of
surprised
stories to tell.
yeah, there's not a surprise that one of our own people, would be entrepreneurial enough and have the kind of concept to actually start something like this. And then coming in today and seeing people working, the amount of offices, the building, it's just a neat story, and it's a story that has made Valpo successful for years and years, which is most of our most successful employers started in a garage or in a basement or
We were above our garage in a hot little office with a
Yeah.
couple of people, but
So thank you for doing it. It's what we need to be successful in the future, and this is a great example of the ingenuity of the citizens of Valparaiso.
my pleasure.
So with the RDA, it's kind of, the reason I left the city to go with the RDA was kind of along the same lines, and thinking that there's a lot of things we could be doing or should be doing to position ourselves for success. And at the city, we were able to do a lot of nice things to really promote growth and shore up small business and increase quality of life. And so, really taking the same concept on a regional scale with the RDA. And there's a lot of misconceptions about what the RDA does, but really primarily when you boil it down to basics, we look at the assets that we already have that make us unique. And we have a shoreline that's irreplicable. You couldn't build a river walk on a planet to match up the strength and power and beauty of that. We have transportation to one of the largest economies in the world in Chicago. We are the gateway for all products to go in and out of the Chicago marketplace between there and the East Coast. We have huge population with diversity of skill set, incomes. We have educational facilities on a national scale and international scale here. We have secondary educational facilities that meet that same description. We're just rich with assets. But, historically, and it's no secret, a lot of those assets haven't performed
Yeah.
at the level that people should have them performing, that, it's fitting of the people who live here and the hard work and ethics that we have brought to the table on a national level, with steel industry and other things historically. So our mission is to go around and say, okay, those things that I just talked about, let's ask the question about Lakeshore. Is the Lakeshore really doing what it's supposed to be doing for the people who live here in a modern context? And the answer to that is no. We want to make sure that the existing employers are valued and supported. But where they're shrinking through, globalization, integration, consolidation, we want to take advantage of what's left over and reclaim that and then make that perform at its best and highest use. And it's not a park project. What's going on in Porter is a great example of what I'm talking about. We have industry nearby, we have recreation nearby, we have a state park and a national lakeshore, we have a Porter County Visitor Center. We have 12, 20, 49, we have the Borman Expressway and the toll road, all running through that area. It's one of the busiest areas in the country for traffic. And yet, we're not connecting to commerce the way some of the towns in Michigan are. with Lakeshore Recreation.
You're not getting them off the highway.
We're not getting them off, and just being blunt with it, I think we have a lot to offer. So what we'd like to do is show you a good time and have you leave your money here when you leave.
Okay.
We want our local businesses to prosper, and not without merit. They have something to offer. We have something to offer up there. So the Porter Gateway project that we're investing in now in Porter County, near $20 million, is really designed to connect those existing lakeshore assets to the town of Porter and Chesterton, and connect all of those assets. Another one is the South Shore train line in there, and just make them all work for one goal, which is to stimulate economic development and preserve the lakeshore assets. You can do both. So there are going to be opportunities for new investment along the corridor. That's going to help bring taxes down over time, because get more assessed value in, and so that's kind of the principle. The principles under which we look for investment along the lakeshore, and trying to be catalytic and changing that for the future. Airport's another example.
It's obviously undergoing a lot of progress right now from a development standpoint. The funding's been there, but you're actually getting the opportunity to really now start putting it to use.
Right. Something historic is about to happen at the airport. We're going to break ground, moving rail out of the way to extend the runway. And a lot of people know about this story. It's been in the press for years. The thing about the runway extension is that if it doesn't get to the 8,900 feet that we're going to build it to, our market is very limited. And in fact, if we don't get this done by 2013, the FAA will actually shorten the runway, which will endanger even the business happening there now, like with clients like Boeing.
Okay.
No longer be able to use the facility. So this is a critical project. It is really, all the studies show, all of the other economies in the United States that have an asset like that, when it's performing well, is a major economic driver. It's not just about convenience and getting on a plane, it's about jobs.
Yep.
And the area around the airport has so much potential. So,
and so much need.
and so much need, you're right. And it affects everybody in the two-county area and beyond. And what's unique about it too is it really is the third airport in Chicago. So what we did is, we partnered with the airport board, and we said, we have to have a business plan, which we did last year. We've got to stick to that plan. We have to have pragmatic steps. We're going to walk, crawl, and run. We're not going to have illusions out there that are beyond obtainability. We're going to ask the question, what's the niche in the Chicago marketplace that we can get to that's going to shore up this airport and make us invaluable to the Chicago aviation market? So we commissioned that, and we started targeting those businesses. But the big important thing that needed to get out of the way was this runway project.
Yep.
So we turned all of our attention to that. And on Wednesday, we're going to break ground on that project after years and years.
It's got to be a major relief.
It is. We got cooperation from the 3 Class 1 rails in the area. They're difficult to negotiate with. A lot of heavy lifting coming up to this day. But that's exciting to me. It's a huge victory, not only physically but symbolically. It shows that we can work together, we can pull stuff off, but it requires partnerships, it requires focus, it requires determination, dedication to the partnership, and sticking to what the plan is. But that's just the beginning. This is, it's the platform for success. This is not the pinnacle. And that's something we always have to recognize in Northwest Indiana. These are just footholds, that we need in order to climb up the hill that is leading to the success and change the economy here. So we're turning up the dial. As soon as we break the ground, we're going after business. Our chairman said the other day, dirt will fly by the 4th of July on the project. That was our goal. And he said more planes will be seen by 2013.
Okay.
So, you get a victory, but it's just
it's a never-ending process.
It's a never-ending process.
Stick with it. And it's not, from an economic standpoint, it's not a quick fix mentality whatsoever. You really have to lay out the groundwork, literally the runway, in order for that opportunity to happen.
Right, exactly right. So that's a great success, I think, and something that'll affect everybody in, I say, Northwest Indiana.
Touching on those partnerships, general media is always going to focus on all the ways that people don't get along, whether it's Indianapolis to Northwest Indiana, whether it's Porter County, Lake County, Republicans, Democrats, town to town, official to official. You've experienced tons of that, but in order for those things to happen, you've got to have seen a lot of examples of people that actually did get along,
right?
That people actually did work together,
right.
That people actually said, no, we're going to put some of this partisan crud aside and work for the common good. Tell us some of the examples of where people did work together.
Yeah, I mean, airport's the most shining one at this particular time. Porter Project has a multitude of partners on it, from state government to local officials to private sector investors. You're exactly right. It takes everybody pulling in the same direction. And that's, let's just be honest about it, that's been what's thwarted growth in Northwest Indiana for generations. We're siloed, we're parochial. A lot of people call it the Balkans. It's balkanized. Politics matter more than results historically. And what the key factor is in order to capitalize on those partnerships and grow them is you have to have a paradigm shift in the way people view themselves. We have for too long looked among ourselves for all of the answers and have also blamed each other for all of our problems.
Okay.
When really, the key is to draw the market in from the outside. So we ought to be on the same page all day long, and our goal ought to be attracting people from outside of here to invest inside of here. And that's been a major change. A project like Porter, as an example, again, we're talking about grabbing commerce from outside, and you really have to change, the way that you look at the assets that you have and say, okay, the quality of life within is very important. Our partnerships there, it's all about the people who live here, but in order to really benefit them, we have to attract people from outside.
Who are some of the organizations, or who are a couple people you might mention that, you appreciate their ability to step across the aisle or to reach across the table and say, hey, you know what, we haven't always seen eye to eye on things, but clearly our interests are best aligned, and I'll work with you.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of examples of that, and I'm glad you asked the question too, because it doesn't get a lot of coverage. I mean, it's like
the coverage is the controversy. The coverage is
right.
people that can't stand each other,
right.
And ultimately, for progress to happen, the people that can't stand each other at some point in time have to sit down and say,
absolutely,
you know what, you're probably not such a bad guy. I'll work with you.
Yeah, and there are those champions for cooperation out there, and they're pretty consistent. I hate to start naming people because you leave somebody out too. There's just a whole bunch of people out there. But one of the more visible examples I think you can see is Congressman Visklosky as a champion of the furtherance of the Marquette Plan, or a champion for the Gary Airport. Identifying the collective assets that we have and pushing people to get on track with results. He made a statement when we were looking at Gary recently and saying, the time for plans is over. Time for action was yesterday, basically. Let's turn some dirt and make some things happen. That has nothing to do with partisan politics. That has everything to do with leadership. And that's one example of that. My former boss, but the list goes on. You get cooperation from mayors here, Mayor McDermott in Hammond, Mayor Copeland in East Chicago. All these people are partners of ours. And in our conversations, when we talk about job growth, we talk about quality of life, political parties don't come into the equation.
Yeah.
It's rubber meets the road. We have people who live here, they have needs. We have an economic reality that we need to change. And so our conversations are more geared toward that.
Tell me a little bit about Bill Hanna. People knew you as the city manager under John. People know you as obviously the head of the RDA. Tell me a little bit about Bill, the family, pursuing the law degree while you're doing the RDA. While I, would consciously think that's fairly nuts.
Yeah.
But the military background. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I have my wife, Christian. We've been married about 15 years. We have 3 kids. Our littlest one's Ireland. She's a pistol.
Okay.
We have Liam as the middle child, his son, and the oldest daughter, Madison.
Okay.
And we live in Valpo.
Good Italian names.
Yeah, right. We're all about the Italian heritage. And so my wife's maiden name is Flynn.
Okay.
So we're pretty Irish. And we love the community here. It's a great place to raise kids. My wife and I met in college. She was with me throughout the military experience. That particular experience, I think, changed my life in terms of wanting to be involved in public service. It was a moving experience for me. It was a humbling experience to see what people sacrifice for this country. I also was able to view, when I was in Washington, the high-level leadership, and that kind of changed my mind about what I wanted to do with my life in terms of education,
Okay.
because I saw that there's a chance to participate in policy making. Everybody gets an opportunity to do that if you want it. But in order to do that, you really you don't want to do it for the sake of doing it. You want to do it because you can contribute. In order to contribute, you ought to be qualified.
Yep.
And so I started pursuing my education in order to be able to be relevant in those conversations.
Tell me a little bit about the discipline that particularly the military helped you with.
What I really learned there was you can push yourself beyond what you would originally have anticipated. That the mission, the outcome of the mission matters more than the process that happens in between personally. And you're going to suffer sometimes. But it's okay to work hard. What's not okay is to fail in a mission.
Yep.
That's not okay. I also learned that you can't do it by yourself. Everything's a team effort. And I would say, in Valpo City Hall, my experience there would be a great example of that. I have lifelong friends from there now. We were mission oriented. We had some stuff we wanted to do, with the mayor, with the clerk treasurer, with the mayor's team around him, and all of our department heads, employees, and I ended up making some great friends there because at the end of the day, when push came to shove and we knew we had to get something done, people rolled their sleeves up and they did it.
Yep.
They didn't worry about how many hours they had worked or this kind of thing. So that's another thing I got out of it. It was the team pulls together and you get things done together. You depend on each other. You fill in your weaknesses with other people's strengths.
So it's a little bit of the combination of the discipline of the military and the entrepreneurial nature of a small town community that says, okay, how do we put those processes in place? But actually, how do we, conjure up new ideas for how to get stuff done?
Right, exactly. And it's a value-based thing too, which is another thing the military has. And I'm talking about the kind of values that drive toward results. Not philosophical ones or things of that nature, but really outlining, here's how we do business, and here's our goals and objectives. And we're not going to compromise how we do them to get there. We're going to figure out how we do business to get us to where we need to go, and we're going to maintain that along the way. And that was something that Valpo, I think, under John's leadership, did and continues to do pretty well. So you not only get the project, you get a process that is worthy of the people that live in the city.
Mm-hmm.
It has integrity, it has transparency, it has some factors like that that really raise the bar on leadership. It says to leaders, if you're gonna lead in this community, here's our expectations of you.
Yep.
And that's long lasting.
Bringing it back as a close, we started when I first met you a little over 2 years ago. We started this concept because I really fell in love with Valpo. I fell in love with a Valpo girl 18 years ago, moved here 5, and I came to town and said, I think this town's even cooler than most of the people in town think it is, because you look at it from an outside perspective and the diversity of nonprofits. I know your family's very involved in that. The richness of education, the amount of cultural things that are going on, the thriving business community, the downtown. It's just, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. What is it that you love about Valpo?
What I really love, you just touched on it. What I love about it is what you see is only a fraction of what is there. So the physical appearance of the community, the amenities that are available, the feeling you get when you come back to just the vibe of the community is all nice. But when you dig beneath the surface, you find even more. And you realize that the small reflection you see physically is only because 90% of that's coming out of the way the people are here.
Yeah.
And, you go into, I love going to these restaurants downtown. So if I go to Bistro or someplace like that, I get great food, but I also get a person who's a local owner that understands the community. I get good conversation. I get nice people, my neighbors sitting around me. Those things are priceless. That's what makes this community unique. And it's really interesting to see if you go to Portage, Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, they all have that too. And what is happening here is that we're just drawing it out and materializing it. And that's starting to happen in other communities too, to even a higher level. And it's just a testament to the creativity of people, the substance of people.
There's a lot of good stuff going on if you actually just focus on it.
Yeah, and you have to invite it.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's what leadership does. They go out and they try to tap into that. And I've had a lot of experience in Northwest Indiana now with my new job in places I never did before, and I find it consistently everywhere. I can go into Gary City Hall tomorrow, and I will find some very dedicated people trying to do just that. Let's draw out what's culturally significant about our community, what's unique about this. You know, what can we capitalize on? And it's a real process. You just have to try to pull that out because it's there.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate that very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your support from the very beginning. And we'll have you back again to talk about things a little bit farther beyond in Northwest Indiana.
Sounds great. Thank you for everything that you do. We appreciate it.
Excellent. That's a wrap. Thank you very much. This has been Bill Hanna with the RDA, Valpo Life and Portage Life. Thank you.